Welcome back to another episode of A Perfect Blend Customer Retention, where we discuss all things customer retention and emerging technologies. As you all know, we are currently looking at voice and ways that we can incorporate voice and conversational AI into any customer journey. My name is Dr. Paul McNeil with MB Usable Security, and today we have an amazing guest. I'm going to get her intro right though. Okay, we have Ali Pinch. She's a conversational designer. She's fallen by accident into conversational AI into the industry about 4 years ago. Ali has designed some of Australia's biggest and best bots from inception, delivery, and post production. Ali's learned the ins and outs of what it takes for businesses to bring a bot to life and to keep it ticking. When she's not designing bots, her guilty pleasure show is watching any kind of cooking videos on repeat. We're definitely very excited and thankful to have you here today, Ali. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me, Paul. I'm excited to do this.
Yeah. So when we're getting started, oh, right, I got to read the disclaimer because, I don't have big lawyers, but the disclaimer is that in no way does anything that we talk about in our brainstorming session mean that we're going to work together or that her company is going to work with me or anything like that. It's just a
Yeah,
fun brainstorming exercise. So, yeah,
that's
that's there. Now we can talk about stuff freely. Also, Ali's not going to talk about anything confidential because I can't absorb the lawsuit. Okay, so let's go ahead and let's start from the beginning. Like, you said that you accidentally fell into conversational
yeah,
design. So
yeah.
how does that work? How do you accidentally end up in one of the what I would say in a popular and fast growing technology
Yeah,
space?
yeah. So I started off my career as a copywriter, so as a content writer, and I was working for a content agency, yeah, almost 5 years ago. And this is when kind of chatbots and the voice industry was really in its infancy. No one really knew anything about it. And at the time, chatbots were literally just mostly just FAQs. And when I was at that content agency, my boss, she put me on this account for a really big Australian bank saying, I want you to be a conversation designer and help write their bots. And I was like, what is that? So
Okay, trial by
yeah, yeah,
fire.
yeah. So I was like, and I'm like, I don't know what that is. She goes, don't worry, you'll learn, you'll learn, you'll learn. So I kind of was just thrown in head first, working on this account for a client of ours, big Australian bank and insurer, and I ended up just loving it. And then from there, I kind of just blossomed and grew. I just kind of fell into the industry completely by accident and realized, hey, this is an awesome skill and it's a really growing industry. Not that many people within Australia and definitely within the world do this. So if I stick with it, then I think it's going to be a real success. And yeah, so far so good. It's an awesome industry and it's literally growing every single day. And I get to work on awesome projects with even better functionalities than last month. So yeah, it's a good time to be in this industry for sure.
That's amazing. So, yeah, I fell into conversational AI similarly in a way. So, my background is like applying machine learning to cybersecurity research. And
Oh, cool.
then I did a startup that ultimately failed. And to pay my bills, I was like going to all these different meetups. And I went to this analytics like meetup or something in Nashville, and I met someone there who worked at a marketing firm, and she was like, "Hey, we need somebody who's like got a data science kind of brain." And I was just like, "Marketing is that Mad Men thing where you like stand in a room and you're like, a girl, she wears red, she's holding a cigarette, Lucky Stripes." I was like, "There's no
Yeah,
numbers in this." And so that was maybe uh ooh, 2017 maybe. I
yeah,
think. And so
right.
then I
Quite
started being like a freelancer for marketing analytics. So I came in under like e-commerce, conversion rate optimization, A/B testing kind of things, surveys, stuff like that. And so as I kept doing that, I really liked it. I started freelancing, and I had a couple of clients who kept asking me like, "Hey, we want to use Alexa. What's this Alexa thing about?" And so I went to some talk where someone was talking about using Alexa for business, and I was like, "There's no way to use this play my music box for business. This makes no sense." And the place that I went to, they introduced me to VoiceFlow, the lecture that I ended up going
Yeah,
to. They were talking about VoiceFlow, and this is when VoiceFlow was like baby.
yeah, cool.
Yeah, I think they had just transitioned off of being the story creation thing, And then after that, I was like, oh, this is kind of cool because I don't have to learn all of the frameworky stuff and I could
Hmm.
still kind of start on the conversation. And my background was in user experience. So I was like, cool. But yeah,
Yeah,
so
VoiceFlow is an epic
roundabout.
platform. It's really come leaps and bounds. Shout out to VoiceFlow. You guys have done an amazing job. So
Absolutely. Shout out to
yeah,
VoiceFlow, Braden, and the team. They've done amazing
yeah,
things. I love them.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, but exactly. I feel like people, unless you're really new to this industry, like a lot of people are trying to get into this industry, but I
Hmm.
feel like the people that have been in this industry for like 4 or 5 years, like you and I,
Yeah.
kind of just fell into it. It's all just been
Hmm.
like a happy accident, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I don't think
This,
people woke up one day and was like, I'm going to be a conversation designer because, like,
yeah.
no one knew what a conversation designer was, even like
Right.
2 years ago, right? Or even
Yeah.
last
Yeah.
year.
Yeah.
And now it's become this sexy title to like work in conversational AI or conversation design, etc.
Yeah,
Um,
absolutely. I'll be on Twitter every once in a while or even
yeah.
LinkedIn and I'll see people posting stuff like, which books would you recommend to get into the industry? And I was
Yeah.
like, Common Sense, published by
Yeah.
Life. But
I get people pinging me on messaging me on LinkedIn weekly, being like, "Hey, how do I get a job in conversation design, etc." And I'm like, what do I need to do to create a portfolio? What experience do I need to have? And like, the
yeah.
biggest piece of advice I always give to people is like, because the industry is still so small and there's, the jobs are quite sparse.
Hmm.
My advice would just be to look at a bot you don't like and redo it yourself using something like VoiceFlow, and
Yeah.
then put that in a portfolio, because at the end of the day, there's very few jobs and you've got to prove yourself somehow. And the people in the industry have already had the experience for a few years. So you have to kind of show that you know your stuff. And I'm always, I love the people at the Conversation Design Institute. I think they do really cool stuff as well. Like if you want to learn the basics of conversation design and linguistics and etc. and intents and all that kind of all the lingo, but I think
Yeah.
at the end of the day, experience is the thing that's going to push you forward in the industry.
No, absolutely. I definitely agree. I'll
Yeah.
piggyback on your suggestion of building your portfolio and say that I also encourage people to
Yeah.
look for like nonprofits that they
Mm.
can work with and just say like, hey, I want to donate this skill to you, or I want to like
That's a
do
great idea.
a chatbot experience for your site for free. And there are a lot of things like using voice flow or something like that where you can become like a one person like chatbot machine as far as
Yeah.
like building out something that's decent quality and getting
Yeah.
real usage on it. So now you can have users, you can have scale, and it will add to like that metrics conversation when you do go looking for a job and when they want to see something that's not just a
Yeah.
project but also something that's live. A lot of nonprofits either don't have them yet or they don't have anyone who can like really make one that's optimized, that's efficient.
Mm.
So I always suggest that. That's worked for me as well, just with any
Yeah.
new type of technology I want to play with.
Not to bang on about VoiceFlow. I swear they're not sponsoring this post, but
They are
if you
not. They are not, but they should, Braden.
want to pay me or Paul, I'm all up for it. But anyway,
Absolutely.
but
Comp me some of my subscription.
enterprise.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. They're so ahead of the game that you can
yeah.
like play with things like ChatGPT 4, which I just saw they posted about today, which
Yeah.
is injected into their platform. So you can learn things that like really front of industry. If you're like on VoiceFlow, you can learn prompt chaining, entity
Mm-hmm.
injection, everything generative AI that like people like that's everywhere. You
Yep.
can learn that by getting to know the platform. And if you can show people like just even posting stuff on LinkedIn of like you taking videos of different bots you built using that, that will
Mm-hmm.
get you places, because it's like the Wild West out there. And if you're able
Yeah,
to navigate it,
for sure.
then yeah, learn the skills and you'll be able to get far.
Yeah, absolutely. It's an
Yeah.
exciting time, and I think that one of the beautiful things about VoiceFlow too is like it's so affordable for the independent person. It's not, it's
Yeah.
like 40, $50 a month or something like that. Like it's not too crazy, and you can do pretty cool things with that 40 to $50. You don't have to have a big enterprise budget, and you can create some really powerful bots
Exactly.
and skills and they integrate with so many different things or they export
Yeah.
to so
Yeah.
many different platforms. So love
Yeah.
it. Okay, I want to jump back to your journey.
Yeah.
So you were put on this big bank project and you're
Mm.
like, don't know what's going on. So after that, did you stay with your same company and like start working with other clients? or did you love it so much you started looking for specific conversational design type opportunities?
Again, it's all a happy accident, but I was actually poached. So this company,
Ah,
yeah, this company that does awesome work in Australia. They, as I said, there's not many conversation designers in Australia, and I kind of put it on my LinkedIn that I'm a conversation designer and a copywriter.
yeah.
And I got poached by this big company in Australia, Australia's leading retailer, to work on their bots, and that's how it
Okay.
started. Otherwise, I wouldn't have. Yeah, I mean, as I said, there's not really many conversation design jobs out there, so again, it was just
Right.
like a happy accident. Yeah.
That's cool. So are you alone on your team, or were you able to like build a team out? How did that kind of work out for you all?
Well, it was a pre-existing team. I'm on a team of 20 people. So
Okay.
that includes two designers, one QA, 10 developers, like two PMs, a delivery lead. So we're a pretty like built out and established team. They've had their bot running since 2017.
Okay.
So yeah, and from then they kept on expanding and building in functionalities and putting bots into different places. And
Sure.
yeah, the main focus that we do is more not on the sales side, but we see the post order experience as the most important because that gets the customer coming back. I guess
Mm-hmm.
that's all about retention, right? So
Yeah, yeah,
how
absolutely.
how can we make the post order experience seamless? Like if you get an online order and you get it delivered and there's a problem with the order, we're able to process a refund through that bot end to end.
Okay.
Or you
Wow.
can track, yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's pretty cool.
We can do things like tracking your order, giving you an estimate your order should arrive between 3 to 5 today or something. We do a whole bunch of things using our bots, and yeah, I'm very lucky to work with such brilliant people where
Yeah.
you just have that attitude of like, let's just give it a go. So yeah, I'm very blessed. But yeah, it's a pretty cool product that I get to work on. So
Okay. No, very cool. Is there I'm trying to phrase this in a way where nobody gets in trouble, right? Is there a problem or something that you notice with
yeah,
other brands and people outside of your company where you're like,
yeah,
maybe you all share the same problem and you've been thinking about ways to solve it. Maybe you haven't. I know when we met, you were looking at the Nike chatbot and kind
that's
of
right.
thinking about going through things that could like improve there. But is there anything in that post purchase that you've seen where maybe you haven't tackled it? Maybe it's not high priority, or maybe it is high priority, but you just haven't, like, you've been thinking about as far as something that you think may be missing from a lot of these retailer brands.
So from other retailer brands, I think,
Hmm.
most other retailer brands in Australia, I find don't even have that post order experience. I feel like in
Mm,
Australia, a lot of people are really still stuck on the FAQ thing. Like,
okay,
bots are only to deliver FAQs and transfer to agents. They don't really do anything else. So I think generally that's where other brands or other organizations in Australia kind of sit.
hmm,
I don't know if it's the same in the US. I think there's a few companies in the US, organizations. I met a few people that kind of do similar stuff that I get to work on, but I think it's a lot of it's the same where people really just stuck on the bot just delivering information and it's poorly trained. It doesn't really understand the user's intent when they say I have a problem
sure,
with my order. It's just kind of left as like, whatever. So I think trying to think about how you can solve customer problems end to end. And I know that doesn't always fit
mhm,
within budgets, but
right,
because I guess it depends if I work in an organization that's really big, so we've got more budget to do things. But if you work for a really
sure,
lean startup, you might not have the resources. But I think that doesn't mean you can't try to solve using really good design work as well, and not just think about a simple FAQ to solve a customer's problem. It's about how you
sure,
can solve a problem end to end. For example, get customers a refund or raise a ticket using the bot that there's a problem with an order or something so that it doesn't have to go to an agent and the customer feels that it's contained within the conversation and they feel happy about it. So
yeah,
that's probably what I would advise other companies to do as well. And, unfortunately, within the organization that I work for, not everything can be solved for as well. There's definitely issues as well that I see sometimes we could solve things better by doing more end to end things. But yeah, I think within now, end to end solutions is the best way to solve
it's the
customer
best
problems.
way to. Okay,
Yeah,
so
yeah,
maybe our brainstorming session could be for someone who is getting, maybe they're a medium-sized brand, so they have
yep,
somewhat of a budget. what
Yep.
would you well, I guess what would we rank like the most important first or like top three like end-to-end solutions that someone could do like post-purchase? Like what would
Retailer.
maybe, huh?
A
For a retailer.
retailer.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
Track my
Track my
order is a
order.
good one
Okay.
because because you're able to track your order easily using in Australia with Australia Post or in the US it might be UPS or whatever.
Uh-huh.
So those API integrations should be publicly available because
Okay.
anyone can track their order, right?
Right.
So theoretically, what you could just do is you could design a journey using VoiceFlow where you get the customer's order number, and then you could integrate that, find a publicly listed API for the company that you use, like whether it's UPS or Australia Post or whatever. And then you could integrate that API into the solution, and then you can, with VoiceFlow, you can hand that off directly from the design to your website. So technically, it's not that difficult. You just need to have like a
Right.
little bit of technical know-how,
Fair.
but yeah, I think using publicly listed APIs and what's available to you, it can work. It's not that hard. So that's probably what I would advise to people as well.
You think that would cut down, that might be a priority. What would I guess be a number two? So we have track order. What would you maybe say would be like number two and three as far as importance?
Customers say, "Where's my order?" So let's track my order, and then
Yeah.
also customers who have a problem with their order, something's missing, something's
Okay.
broken, this is faulty, etc., and how you handle those customer complaints. So you make sure that you don't want to piss off the customer that something's gone
Right.
wrong, and to ease them as well. Like you're going to hand that off to an agent. Are you going to create a system that creates a ticket for an agent to review later? Are you going to refund the customer? It's also about creating business rules about how you define essentially what's going to happen next and building
Okay.
a journey that suits the customer that doesn't piss them off, as I said.
Okay.
So track my order, return slash refunds, and
Hmm.
the third one, well, it's tricky. The third one, maybe like change details. Like I want to update my details. I need to
Okay.
update my address. I want to change my
Yep.
order details, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So also how you handle that.
Yeah. Those are three good ones. We had a guest on here a couple episodes ago, and they were selling. They're a smaller retailer, and they were selling like a seasoning, like a cooking seasoning. Which, when
Mm,
you sell, I was like, oh, this is great because that's the example. So he sells this cooking seasoning, and they're just kind of getting started in the states. I think mostly right now his distribution is in Florida, and
mm,
so our example for him was just, could we create like an interesting Alexa skill or something where people could read it
yeah,
off of his label and kind of learn like different cooking recipes that would always, of course, use his ingredients, things of that nature. But we
yeah,
didn't really talk about like how if he has an online store, he could utilize that to track his order, things like that.
yeah,
I'd
yeah,
love to think about like if you were to buy something in a retail store, what
yeah,
would that post purchase kind of look like? And what would
yeah,
maybe be a really good end to end for something like, I already physically have this, but what could we do to kind of extend that journey post
yeah.
purchase? Yeah.
Well, again, I think customers who have a problem with, whether the product is faulty or whether
Hmm.
it's expired or whatever, so kind of understanding how to navigate that experience, it's still important.
Yeah.
So yeah, refunds or returns or complaints or whatever you want to call it. I think that recipe idea is really great. So how you can use the seasoning to your advantage.
Hmm.
But also when you think about real time use cases as well, customers already have intent. So they're only going to come back to the bot if there's a
Yep.
problem, right?
Right.
Because
Right.
otherwise they're going to be using their seasoning in their cooking and tasting it. I mean, one thing you could do is you could have some sort of like, if customers are really happy, you could have some sort of like, you could connect it to your socials and have it some kind of like share experience where customers are sharing their meals, stuff like
Oh,
that.
I
You
like
can get
that.
rewarded, and you can get rewarded for sharing using a bot,
Yeah.
so that you can gamify it as well.
Well, I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah,
Let's play with that some more. Let's
so,
like think about like what that would look like end to end. And maybe that's what we're brainstorm a little bit and
sure,
see how that goes.
yeah,
Sometimes I end up like really doing the idea that we have. Uh I've worked on one, I still haven't like made it public, but in a future episode or something I'll probably put it online. But
Yeah.
that's why I'm always like, oh, let's just brainstorm and put out these like little prototypes. But yeah, I like that idea of, okay,
Yeah.
this is someone who's got the seasoning. He's got the seasoning. It's a physical purchase, but then we're gamifying to
Yeah.
get our people to return,
Yeah.
whether it's a bot or a skill or whatever. Yeah, what would that look like?
I mean, technically, you could hook it up to an LLM, to a large language model,
True.
to give customer suggestions about if you wanted to go the first use case in which you were talking about the other podcast about
Oh,
getting
one
recipes.
quick question. At LLM,
Like,
could you explain what
yeah,
that is for the people that aren't like here? I
a
forgot.
large
I heard
language
it.
model. Yeah,
Yeah.
all good, all good. So everyone listening, I hope knows what ChatGPT is. It's literally just been like the atomic bomb. That's like it's actually been around already for a couple of years, but you know, in the past, in January, it became the fastest product to ever get to 1 million users. I think it was within
Hmm.
like 30 days or something. What a large language model is when you have generative AI, which is ChatGPT, in which a bot generates answers depending on what you ask. It has to come from all these data points, right? So a large language model is just like these millions and bajillions of data points that things like ChatGPT draw on to generate responses. And what it does is when you think of a sentence, right? The sentence being, my name is Ali and I live in Australia. If we were to take out a few words from that sentence, so we go, my name is X and I live in X, what a large language model, the purpose of it does is it fills in those blanks for you within that sentence. So it helps to complete the search or complete the summary. So rather than just give an answer and response like you would have from a Google, large language model has smarts where it starts to think about, okay, how can I piece things together in order to generate and summarize responses like you see in ChatGPT? I hope that answers the question well, does it?
I think that was a great one. If anybody has any additional questions, you could definitely
Yeah,
contact us and we'll explain
yeah.
more. But I think that was a pretty good explanation. So, kudos, bravo.
So going back to that use case before,
Yeah.
and this is something we think about where I work, is how can we hook things up to a large language model so we don't have to train our chatbots? Because usually when you train a chatbot, you literally manually have to train sentence or utterances or keywords or whatever
Hmm.
into the bot. But if you hook it up to a large language model, you don't really need to do that as much anymore. So thinking about that recipe bot, you could hook it up to a large language model, and someone could say, "Hey, could I get a what can I cook using my seasoning, my cheeseburger seasoning?" And a
Hmm.
large language model will be able to give you give you top 10 ideas you can cook by filling in those gaps that we were just talking about before that it can do. So that would be a really easy way to create a recipe bot, the use case you're talking about last week.
Right.
But to gamify it, what you could do is you could essentially using Facebook Messenger or whatever it is that you're using or WhatsApp,
Hmm.
you can get customers to message in a photo of their recipe, as well as like what they're doing, and that feeds your model as well. So then you'll be able
Right.
to compute more recipes. So essentially, you're paying customers for their data, rewarding them for their data with points. The
Yeah.
more points you get, the more seasoning you can buy,
Right.
and you can win a year-long like subscription to your seasoning. So
Yeah.
yeah,
I
I
love
think
that.
yeah, that's probably like I don't know. I'd love to see if you can build it. It'd be
Yeah.
awesome. Hook it up to ChatGPT, to
Yeah.
DaVinci 3.5. That's the API, and see what happens.
That would be really amazing because I'm thinking like as you're saying, I'm like, oh man, because you could do some like prompt chaining with that.
That's
And
right.
so now you're able to kind of remember the various things. Like I'm allergic to
That's right.
tomatoes or something like that. Now it
Yeah,
becomes, it's able
yeah,
to really craft these things utilizing an
yeah.
LLM. So that
And
is, I like that.
yeah, just to explain to everybody prompt chaining. So when you think about ChatGPT, which is the future of conversational AI, what you need to do is you need to instruct the bot on how to do something, right?
Hmm.
But the bot needs to have context. It needs to know, okay, what an order entails or what a customer's needs are, etc. So you need to create a prompt, which is how you instruct the bot. So the bot doesn't go super wily. I mean, I don't know if you play with ChatGPT or if you play with anything in voice flow sometimes it can often have a mind of its own, so you need to be really
Yep.
clear about what you're instructing it. So if you're able to engineer a prompt that's really direct, you can get it to do anything, really. So taking
Yeah.
into context, the user's needs, like if there's allergies or someone's gluten free, or
Hmm.
they don't want to have any meat, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Even like what utensils they want to use, if they want to use it on the barbecue or they want to use it on the stovetop, then you can generate a recipe bot, or in the inverse, you can give the bot ideas about what you want to use as well to create your food.
I
Yeah,
love that. I love also the idea of hooking this into whatever loyalty program that you have as well. So it's like you have this really great, like, you've already bought this thing, you're coming back because you want to get these points, which we already know just
yeah,
from brand perspective, people love a
yeah,
good loyalty program. You look at like a Starbucks, and like
yeah,
Starbucks just sits on loyalty, was it Starbucks? And so you kind of get to have that experience even with cooking. That's really interesting to me. And as you mentioned, like being able to hook into those APIs, most of those loyalty based programs, if you're a smaller medium sized brand or whatever, you don't even have to build your own custom one. You have so many
yeah,
platforms that are already available that you can kind of sync into, and now you have people engaging, like you said, with your WhatsApp or your Messenger bot.
yeah,
So that
yeah,
is
for sure.
amazing.
If people want to give it a go, I'd love to see it.
Yeah,
I'm
I mean, so it is something where I'd make like a basic prototype, but I don't know that I don't know. I would have to like play around with that or have some time to do that.
uh,
I just
I
Mhm.
would what I would do is with this game, like think about this gamification.
Yeah,
So if you get customers to, if you part of your marketing campaign is you give out like 20 recipes, and you're like, if you make these recipes, then we will reward you with points. You just got to
I
like
got you.
message it in.
Yeah.
So what you could really do is you could hook up your bot to an LLM
Yeah.
and basically create JSON fields of each thing that the bot is trying to detect. So you
Mhm.
can instruct ChatGPT, be like, hey, using this list and have this
Right.
JSON file, if you detect any recipes that are similar to the ones that the customer has said, hey, I've cooked this recipe with cheeseburgers, then tell them, reward them with 50 points or whatever it
Right.
is. And
Right.
you can almost like, yeah, create a
Yeah.
JSON to detect
That's fair.
what similar products the customer is talking about when they're saying, hey, I cooked this recipe with the cheeseburger.
And then you get like points, and you could even maybe even throttle those points based on how close to the desired thing. So people get like partial credit, right? Who doesn't love partial credit? Yeah,
I'll
no,
take
I
any,
love
you
yeah. No, I
yeah.
like that. We are almost at our time here, but before we go, I'd love to give you the opportunity to share any maybe project that you may be working on, like on your own that you want to kind of publicize, or a charity, or just anything like that.
Within the industry or without or outside of the
Just
industry?
something that means something to you. Like if you want to highlight something, we just want to give you that time.
I guess I'll go within the industry, but I've been playing around with prompt chaining, and it's a whole crazy world out there. And I really, yeah, encourage everybody to get onto VoiceFlow and have a play and learn how to do it, because I really think this is the future of the industry, and it's super fun. And I really encourage everybody to share their projects and the designs. And we have such an amazing tight knit community. Definitely, we can call on everyone else to understand and get feedback and learn and knowledge share. And it's a blessing to really be part of this community. So
Absolutely.
share around, don't be afraid to say hello. And yeah, I think this is an awesome, awesome, awesome industry. So everybody should get on board, but not too many people because then it'll become
Yeah.
saturated.
That's right. That's right. I
Yeah,
100% agree on
yeah,
everything, even that not too many people.
yeah,
But I love that because that's something that I have loved about this community. It is pretty close knit and a pretty transparent community to an extent. I mean, everybody's
yeah,
got, intellectual property, but it's
yeah,
very easy to reach out to someone you've never met. Like even how we met, I just was at something where you were talking. I was like, hey, this is really cool, and you're able to have that like camaraderie. I think, and maybe it's
yeah.
because we're starting to be invaded by the general public. It's like everyone's like, hey, we've been here. Let's link up. So I love
Sorry,
that.
my dog is running down the hallway. You
Uh,
can probably. Yeah,
it's actually not as it's not that too loud. It wasn't too bad. But
yeah,
I do, Ali, I definitely want to thank you so very much for taking time out this morning for you. I think it's evening for me, it's morning for you, to just come and talk with us about it. My project that I want to share is that I've done a interactive Alexa skill where we're
Cool.
featuring marginalized creators, and we actually just put it out,
Cool.
and it's called The Other America Your Choice. And so if
Yeah.
anybody wants to check that out, we're constantly iterating on it and so forth. As always, if you all have any questions, please feel free to reach out to Ali or to myself. If you're looking to get started or you just want further explanation, you can always get in touch with me, find out what other cool things we're working on with direct to consumer brands and so forth. And once again, thank you so much, Ali. I appreciate it.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Paul. Thanks for having me.